Everybody. I'm using this format, as I mentioned in the introduction to the class, for talking about topics in the class. I'm going to call these micro lectures as the first of those, and those are basically going to be short videos that we're going to talk about a particular topic. And again, we're starting here, and it is basically a definition of marketing and why it's important, and then a couple other topics along the same lines are where it fits in within an organization, and a brief overview of the marketing management process. So what is marketing? And there's lots of ways, of course, to define it, and each one of them looks just a little bit different. But I'll go to the professional organization that marketers are members of. It's called the American Marketing Association. Their definition of marketing, which they update on a regular basis, by the way, but their definition of marketing is the activity, set of institutions, and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. I think what's important about there is creating something that has value to people who might use it. So let's talk about this. Value is actually a very important topic in marketing because it really is all about delivering value. A firm has to deliver value to have any success in the marketplace. So value is basically made up of the benefits the customer receives for the cost that they pay for those benefits. Obviously, the higher the value, the more value, the greater chance of success, and the more satisfying it is to the customer. So what are some ways we can improve value with a company? Of course, well, we know we can lower costs, lower prices, and that does create value. So the denominator of that equation goes down, so the value will go up. You can do things like have longer hours or greater accessibility. We can introduce new products. We can improve the existing products that we have. We can increase the number of places to shop and buy our products, whether we're opening our own stores or websites, what have you, or we're expanding our distribution, all things we're going to talk about throughout the class. Educate users on new uses of the products and services that we have. That's a way to add value. And expanding and improving logistics. Logistics are basically the idea of how do I get the product into the consumer's hands. So I've got a basic question for you here. A couple of years ago, Amazon bought Whole Foods. Now, Amazon's an online e-commerce company, retailer, who sells a whole lot of different things. But why did they buy Whole Foods? As you think about that, I use Amazon as an example a lot because I've worked with them in the past. Not worked for them, worked with them. I want to make sure I make that clear. They bought Whole Foods primarily because they thought they could bring a greater level of logistics to getting groceries, particularly on delivery. And by and large, they really set forward the whole idea of at-home delivery of groceries. And they did and Whole Foods was their target because Whole Foods was a higher margin company, basically. So they could make more money, or you could afford to offer more services and still make money. Over the years, over time, we can see that there's companies that have had different focuses, organizations that have different focuses on how they looked at things from a marketing standpoint. One of them is from the product and production standpoint, focus on the building of products that you can build. A great example of that is Henry Ford with his Model T, bringing the automobile to the masses back in the early 1900s. He famously said, you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. So obviously he did that for efficiencies and tried to keep the cost of the car down. There's a sales orientation, focus on convincing the customer that your product works best for them. I think back to the Mad Men days of the 60s and large-scale advertising on television, and it was a pretty interesting time for marketing. And that has eventually filtered to a customer orientation where we focus on figuring out what customers want and then design the product and service around them. So What can we market? Well, gets interesting. We actually have a couple of topics on it. One of them is what's a product? And that seems kind of like an odd thing to ask, but a product is a lot of different things, right? So a product could be a good, or, hard good that we're familiar with, like something like that. Backpack, okay. It could be a service, like a day spa. It could be an experience, like a sporting event. It could be an event itself, like some type of a live performance. We market people. We market ourselves. And we will get very used to doing that throughout our careers because that's how you get your next opportunity. You can market places. We've seen that as well. And then you can also market information. A company like TurboTax makes it pretty easy to keep your books and do your taxes for the purposes of reporting them. We can market ideas and causes. We all know what that pink ribbon's for, probably. I'm guessing most of us do. It's for the breast cancer group. And then you can market whole companies, in Facebook and what have you. There's lots of different companies that market themselves. Okay. So marketing begins with, and this is really important, knowing who your target customer is. Who is the person most likely to want to buy the product or service that you're offering? So who is the potential buyer user? Where are they? What do they need and want, and when? How do they fulfill what they need and want right now without you even being involved? So those are all the considerations to define who is the group of people most likely to want the product or service that you offer. It's a very, very important step, and that's why it's the first step, and you have to do it very, very well, or your marketing plan is going to be really hard for you to create a successful marketing plan. So marketing has evolved over time. Marketing is a relatively new discipline. For centuries, when we thought about demand or the sales of an organization, we thought about it in terms of economics. We thought about supply and demand curves. If you ever taken an economics class, you've no doubt been exposed to those. I'm not going to go into those because this is not an economics class, but that was sort of how we envisioned how demand works. Back in the early 1900s, mass advertising started to emerge. Newspapers became much, much more efficiently produced and more widely read. The advent of radio came along, and that changed things as well. So mass advertising as a concept, in other words, putting out a message and putting it out in front of a large group of people all at the same time, that started to come about then, and that started to shape that aspect of marketing. In the 1950s, consumer behavior became a science. I mean, there was a little bit of it underneath it. We're going to talk about that next week, but consumer behavior is directly related to the growth of the sciences of psychology, sociology, primarily, and consumer behavior study became after that. Marketing has grown with technology, and that's been a primary driver. So I mentioned with print, not only did we have newspapers proliferate, but so did we see magazines proliferate. So print advertising became a bigger deal. Catalogs, the first Sears Roebuck catalog was well over a century ago. So those are just ways that marketing has grown with the growth of technology. And then broadcast technologies took over. We had radio, as I mentioned, that became very, very popular before TV came along, and then that has since changed to digital forms of technology, primarily the things we see on the internet. So marketing has evolved quite a bit since its inception. It's relatively new, and it's evolved, and it continues to evolve, which makes it an exciting field, by the way. So what we're going to talk about next is, where does marketing fit in the organization? So just as a wrap up to this one, I won't do this every time, but here's a real good time for you to do your what's your take on this particular lecture. Kind of consolidate your notes and say, okay, here are the three key things that I picked up this time, and make sure that's included in your entries for this week. Okay? If you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out.